Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's special webinar, our monthly webinar for May. We're so happy that you could join us. My name is Sarah Bryant, and I'm your Education Director at DBA Platform, where it is our mission to get you found online. You probably already know that DBA Platform is the premier software and solution provider for managing local presence at scale with automation, and helps to win visibility for all your locations in Google, Bing, Apple, and all the other consumer platforms and directories that put consumers on a buying journey. Today, we're talking about cracking the code of local SEO, and our agenda is got a lot of kind of updates in it today because there are some new platform features in Local Falcon, DBA Platform. Google itself has done some updates that we want to talk about that are pretty pertinent. And then we're going to get into our normal discussion of local presence optimization, which, you know, as we kind of, as everything has been evolving, there are more and more changes to local presence optimization. And local presence is the most important kind of presence because more and more searches have local intent. So we're going to dig into that agenda. And before we do, I just want to give you a couple of sort of administrative updates. One is that our office hours has changed a little bit. You're going to see, we'll put a link into the chat here so that you can get to the spot where you can reference, bookmark, and enroll for office hours. So we have a few changes to the schedule, but if you're looking for tech support or you just want a platform walkthrough, or if you're a pro services client who gets all of your content done by DBA Platform, or if you have questions about Local Falcon, any of these things, there's a place and a time where you can go and get individual support. So make sure to take a look at the office hours because it has changed a little bit. And then our Director of Marketing asked us today to let you know about the local SEO newsletter. And we just went sort of through a revamp of our CRM and cleaning up all of our contacts. So you may not be sort of opted in for our newsletter. So if you want to stay informed on what's going on, there are so many changes happening that this stuff is coming out more quickly than we can even kind of announce in our webinars. So you'll receive the newsletter on top of that can help go through some of these things. We have some good blog articles in there and some good tutorials and videos and things. So please take a look in the chat for that newsletter link. It's posted right now. You can go there and sign up for that too. And then I know I'm sending you all over your Zoom controls right now to go do different things. But if you've been on our webinars before, you know that we have a big question and answer segment at the end of the presentation where you can ask questions about you know, your situation or specifics to your industry or whatever's plaguing you right now, from you know, the mundane to the extraordinarily specific. Go to your Q&A function in the Zoom controls. And if you click that thing, you can kind of separate it from your Zoom panel and you can watch the questions that other people are asking in the audience. And then you'll have the opportunity to upvote those. And at the end of the presentation on local SEO and all these updates, then we'll take the most popular questions and we'll answer those first. It's kind of rare for us to get through all the questions, you know, on the webinar. And so if we can't get to them, make sure that you upvote the ones that you really want to hear the answers to. There will be a recording, and if you're on the Zoom webinar, you'll receive an email with the recording link. It's also posted in our private Facebook group, and we give you lots of access to all those materials, so you'll see it. And we'll give you that Facebook private group link at the end of the webinar so that you can go there and make sure that you're all registered to ask and answer questions in that forum too. So now you'll recognize his face, my cohort in the monthly webinar, and one of our experts at DBA Platform, the inventor of Local Falcon, Gilbert. Jan is Obviously, he's one of the regulars on our webinar series because the guy is a master in local SEO. He stays up to date on everything that's happening in Google. He talks directly to Google. And in fact, he's also a part of the very exclusive Google Platinum product expert team. So Jan, I know we talked earlier and you had so many new things to tell us. What's going on in local SEO, my man?
Yeah. Hi, Sarah. Thanks, everyone. There's a lot this week, this month, I should say, but it seems like every week there's something new. So I just want to talk about Local Falcon really quickly. So I mentioned this last month. Local Falcon can now connect to Looker Studio, which is basically the new name for Data Studio. And so it makes reporting a lot easier because that's always a time waste when we're manually copying and pasting and doing all kind of reporting like that. So take a look into the connection between Local Falcon and Looker Studio. There's an API connection as well to do that. And there's also a new feature called campaigns. Previously in Local Falcon, you would run a lot of scans, and maybe you have different clients and they weren't able to be grouped together. So now you can do that. I think it's only in beta right now. And so you can only group group listings and campaigns when you're starting out. So right now existing listings can't be grouped yet, but take a look if you're setting up a new client, you might want to do it this way. It's going to be a little bit more organized for you instead of you could always find and filter, but it's a little bit easier to set up ahead of time like that. So take a look. That's in beta. So there's going to be some things to change. Definitely give feedback if you see something that you want to be added, because they're actively working on it. And so you want something to be added, let us know. So I always do the new categories in Google business profiles. And there's actually nothing new for this month. So this is basically the same slide as last month, but it's still relevant because if it's new, you want to add them to your listings, preferably ahead of your competitors. And so these were new in April, so there's nothing new in May. But I think the most important one here is maybe the financial advisor one, which is brand new, and then orthopedic supply store. If you're that kind of store, if you're selling those kind of products, that would be very important to add. So,
boy, you would think that financial advisor would have already been in the list, wouldn't you?
Yeah, there was a financial planner, but now there's a new one for that. So there's a little bit of a difference. And so,
I mean, if we're at the point where we're adding pilgrim hostels to the categories, you would think we would have covered financial advisor, but
yeah, and sometimes, yeah, it depends on different countries because these are translated into English, but other countries are obviously going to have more use out of certain categories than other ones. But financial advisor and financial planner, they're very similar. So, you know, if it fits, make sure you add it. And there's also testing to do to see certain keywords will trigger better or have more visibility if you pick financial advisor as your primary, or maybe if you pick financial planner as your primary, there might be other keywords that come up a little bit better. So there's every time Google does something, there's a little bit of testing to see what works best, and I'll go over that a little bit later on.
Hey Jan, before you go on, this is an interesting question from Rebecca, and it's gonna kind of inform how she listens to the entire webinar. But she's in the UK, so she's asking how relevant is what we're talking about, like in the US? How is it translating to the UK? She says, I assume it's fairly similar, but is there anything that she needs to, think about differently as we go through these things?
Sure. Google has its system and it works the same across the whole world. The only thing, like the visibility, the ranking factors, the way the review, everything is exactly the same. Because if you can imagine, Google doesn't want to have specifics for each country. That wouldn't make sense unless, in Europe, there might be specific laws that are more restrictive. So Google's going to change some systems to be more about privacy and things like that. But in general, UK is going to be the same exact thing. The only thing that might change is then if I'm referring back to those categories, sometimes the category names are different in the UK or in North America, just because they don't say real estate agent, they say listing agent. But it's the same thing, but it just is called a different name over there. They're just like, it's kind of like translated into a different English.
Yeah, but I mean, you would know your own keywords, right? So that would sort of translate for you automatically.
Yeah. So, all right. So the bugs. So there's a bunch of bugs, and I didn't have screenshots for each one because if they're affecting you, and if they're not affecting you, well, then they just be aware that in case you're trying to do stuff, if you come across it, at least like, okay, that's a bug. That's just not me, right? So currently, there's a problem with some listings that they can't invite new owners. So if you have a new listing or you're adding a new owner, then you're trying to send out the invite, it's going to give you an error, or the other person never receives that. A little bit of a bypass is you can try to add them as a manager, and then they accept, and then you could bump them up. But Google is aware of this one, and so they're working on that. So it's just ongoing at this point. Some order links, like if you have food order links in your profile, you can go back into your dashboard and you could try to edit them. Not all of them are saving properly, and so there's some issues with that. There's been a bunch of photo and video posting errors. I forgot what the exactly says, but it says you can't. There's some system overload or something like that, where you try to add a photo and either it just like loops and refreshes, or it says system error. So there's some issues there. So those are like the three main technical glitches that are going on, and Google's aware of those. And hopefully they'll be fixed in the next week or so. I put verification loops, and the other one, they're not really errors because we're not sure. As the product experts, we do talk to Google. I'm not sure if this is more of an error or just something that Google is doing on purpose, or they left out a step by accident. But Google's trying to push for the video verification and get away from the postcards, just for security and getting rid of the fake listings from cropping up as much. So they're putting more restrictions on the verification. And sometimes you'll hit a place where you're trying to verify a listing, and it'll say do a video, and then you try to do a video, and then the people never show up on their side, or there's a glitch, and then you have to contact support, and support says, well, just use video. It's like, I just did use video. And then you go, so there's some step process errors that Google has sometimes. So if that ever happens to you, go to the support forum, not just your regular contact place like through your listing. You have to go to the support forum and open a ticket, and then someone can try to help you bypass that bad loop that you're in.
Hey, Jan, Caitlin asked, does Google post a roll-up list of all these known bugs?
No. Why would they don't want to embarrass themselves, right? So, and honestly, we're only allowed to talk about them when, I would say, after they get found. Usually the product experts find stuff, we bring it to Google, and then Google says, oh yeah, thanks for letting us know, we didn't know about that, or yeah, we already knew, we're working on it. So that we get that kind of feedback. But unless someone posts that error on Twitter or on some blog or something like that, who's like, you can't talk about our bugs, we don't want you to talk about our bugs. But if someone already shared it publicly, now I can talk about it. So we have some restrictions on
so a bunch of people are kind of posting questions about the bugs, and somebody said they actually experienced the video verification issue, except that they're bulk verified. So support cleared up the issue for us, but do you have any idea why this issue would have overrode the bulk status?
I think they're just having trouble with the onboarding steps. There's changes of how they're doing things internally, their internal processes, and they're very in depth. And I just think either it's a training issue, or they're missing a step somewhere, or there's something going on like that. So they clear those up as people complain on the forum, and then they look into it and fix them.
Yeah, and kind of to answer Caitlin's question about the roll-up list, like we're not really even allowed to post that either. But we talk about them here because it's so annoying when you imagine, you're doing this stuff, you find a problem and you can't get past it. So each person out in the world has to go figure out that this is a known problem. Because, what's the first thing you do? Like turn it off and turn it back on again. You have your own whole host of things that you go through to make sure the problem isn't your end. And you know what I mean? So it's
And we do the same thing at DBA platform. Like Egan, our technical guy, he'll message me. He's like, hey, we're having a problem with the API. Did Google tell you that there's an issue about it, or go find out if there's an issue for us? So even technically in the back end, we don't know. Is it Google? Is it us? And so again, we do this just to help you save time. If you run into the posting problem, which is probably more widespread, and my image won't post. Well, what's wrong? Is it my image? Do I have to resize it? Do I have to recrop it? Is it something was it the words, or is it just a glitch on Google side and I come back tomorrow or next weekend it'll work, right? So you don't want to waste time. And it's not that I'm not allowed to say these things that I wouldn't say them if I wasn't allowed, but there's when they're public, I can talk about them. Sometimes Google has glitches that are affecting users that we are not supposed to mention because it makes them look bad. And that would be like any PR, big gigantic company doesn't want bad PR. But if it's already public, I can just remind you guys that it's not you, it's them sometimes.
Hayden had a question. Has the photo bug affected products as well? I had a product photo be rejected multiple times for breaking a rule that it allowed for all our other product photos.
Yeah, it's possible. I haven't seen that specifically, but usually it's the same algorithm subsystem that you're using with images. If you're using images on the products, it's probably the same thing, because they're like subsystems that get broken, and then it'll probably do the same thing. I even seen in the thread, I'm helping someone on a support thread, and it was a completely different Google product that had a similar issue, that they're getting the same error. So it could be some server level thing. I don't know. They don't tell us the technicals.
And there's a couple questions too on the video verification. So first, Rob said that Google's recently backed off of requiring the video verification. And he says, we've added 2 locations in 2 months and video verification has not been required. So we're now able to verify by call or text. But then Matt says, I'm going through this exact issue. We can't get our business verified with the video. Would you mind sharing where exactly the support forum is? We've tried everything and submitted the video multiple times.
Oh, I don't have that link, Luke. I don't know if you have it. It's we can share it after in the Facebook group. It's the standard Google. Just write Google Forum or Google Business.
Yeah, Luke will find it and put it in the chat for you. It's the Google support link.
Yeah, and so anytime you hit a glitch that you're not sure about, you can always open a thread there. Doesn't mean you'll get help because it's staffed by volunteers like me. There's no one at Google really helping you in those forums. Basically, we, the product experts, see a problem, we escalate it to Google, and basically it goes to a different support team that might have better access or pays more attention instead of just the templated answers that you usually get with normal support. So yeah, and as far as the verification, it depends. Sometimes it depends on the category. It depends on the amount of information that Google already has about your business. So if everything matches up, it might give you that, the phone call because it trusts the data that it already knows. But if you're setting up a brand new listing and location and it's not been mentioned on your website and there's no citations yet, or it doesn't, or your user level isn't, name isn't trusted enough, it'll be like, oh, okay, we don't trust the data, we're going to give you a harder level of verification. So there's lots of scenarios and paths of where you're going to get it shunted to, depending on the data that Google already has on you. So and the category as well, if they want to be more restrictive because there's more spam, or it doesn't, things like that. So it's always changing and different for everyone, and so that's what makes it confusing, that we can't say do this because it's different.
Right, and people, and when we have the webinars or when we have our advisory board meetings, people are talking about what they're seeing and they're having totally different experiences. So it's like, what are we dealing with? How does this work now?
Yeah, because an agency is trusted. They have hundreds of listings potentially, and they're doing well, and none of them are suspended, and everything's going smooth. But you just have an email, you open a new listing, and boom, now you're having the hardest trouble in the world. it's not that they're not being fair to you. It's just the system is built that way. I'll just do this last one here. So the offer posts not visible on desktop. So this is, again, I don't know if this is a bug or if it's intended, but if you create an offer post and then you go to desktop or in your knowledge panel, you'll see your post section there, and you won't see your offer posts there. But if you click on like see posts, then it shows up. And so that kind of seems a bit weird behavior. Like, why is it there only after you click? On mobile, it's there, like in the normal view. So it just seems, sometimes people say, oh, my offer post isn't showing up. It actually is. It's there on mobile and it's there on desktop, but you have to do an extra step to be able to see it. And it's not in the normal order. So it's just something that is probably they're going to fix. It's not, wrong, but it just seems like odd that they would do that on purpose. All right, so let's go back a month, almost 2 months here. 2 months ago, at the there was in the middle of March there was a broad core update, but March 15th is when they said it started, but that was the organic one. There was a broad core update that affected local rankings, basically March 28th, 29th, 30th. It always runs a few days. So I just wanted to remind people, because now you have a couple months of scans if you're running Local Falcon or whatever other local scans that you're checking. Now you might be able to see some kind of pattern, because if you run a scan in April, it went down, it went up. Well, I don't know, there's no pattern yet, but now you might have 2 scans. So now you might start seeing a pattern. I'm just reminding you that there was a big update at the end of March for local. So take a look at your rankings, see if there's anything that changed for you, any patterns that you might be able to pull out.
Do you have any idea what it affected or what people might be seeing?
Yeah, well, last month I did half the webinar on that. So if you want to go back to last month, I don't want to spend the time again and repeat myself. I don't think anything new changed from last month to this month, but I did give a good comprehensive review of what changed last time. So go back and do that. Luke just shared that in the chat there. And just to give a quick reference, is it changed the way the primary categories matching to keywords. So some categories were really affected and some were not affected. And so if you want to, if you think that you've been affected and you're not sure how or why or what to do, go back to the last webinar. I think I have, half of it is just talking about that. So I don't want to just repeat myself. I'm trying to get to the new stuff. All right, so let's go to some really specific, strategies, not really issues, but just some things that are helpful to pay attention to. And this is, these are called justifications. So, you've seen these, and Google always comes up with weird names. They're called justifications. It's the little things that show up after, the little snippets of information that show up after your main information part. And these change depending on what you're searching for and what keywords. And you can see here, there's, in this case, we have on-site services and online appointments. And then in these green boxes, you have, one of them says provides family lawyer. And that's pulling in from your services section. And then you have on the right-hand side, you have a little symbol with a person there that comes from a justification getting pulled from your reviews. And so I guess just in general, if you haven't been paying attention to that, these little justifications can pull either from, sometimes they pull from your website. The web says website mentioned. Sometimes if you have your products, like in your e-commerce, it'll say in stock. There's all kinds of justification that get pulled in here, but there's a priority that Google has put. And again, it's not published anywhere. We learn this by experience. And you'll see where the 2 red arrows are. One says on-site services and online appointments. And then in the other one, on the right-hand side, it says in-store shopping, curbside pickup, and delivery. So those are chosen by you in your attributes section. So if you go into your dashboard and you click on the main area and you go down, and in the attributes section, you can choose on-site services or in-store shopping or curbside pickup. And if you choose any of those categories, those will take precedence over any of the other justifications that can potentially show up. And so you want to maybe take a few of your main keywords, do a search, pull up, do a search that pulls up your listing in the 3-pack, for example, and take a look to see what's showing up. Because a lot of times I would rather have maybe a review showing up, or maybe I want to have the services justification provides XYZ showing up, as opposed to the on-site services showing up. And so you want to go and try to remove those attributes that you might do them, but they're blocking the other justifications that might be more relevant or give you a better click-through rate on your listing. Maybe a good review is better than telling someone that you do on-site services, for example. I'm just going to pause and let everyone see if I have any questions about that.
Well, there are lots of questions, but not so much in particular to that.
Super. So I'm going to just add one more thing. Sometimes you can't, because it's a toggle, yes or no, and you can't remove it completely. And so if you say like, yes, I provide on-site services, it'll show up. But then if you hit no, then the justification will say does not provide on-site services, and then it'll still block your justification. So you have to go to contact support and say remove this completely, because once you get into that yes and no toggle, you can't remove the justification at all. Like you can't take it off anyway. So something to pay attention to.
Did just ask, where do you find attributes in the dashboard?
Yeah, it's just in the main section. Let me see. If you go here to the edit profile area and start scrolling down, they'll be in those down near the bottom of that pop-up scroll. Right. So it doesn't mean that you don't do those things, but just be aware. And these are the little nitpicks that we're into. But sometimes showing provides a family lawyer, which matches a keyword, is much better than this online appointments. But maybe online appointment is really important to you and you want to show that. So again, it's not a one size fits all for everyone. It's just look at it, pay attention to it. Service ranking strategy. So this I've mentioned on previous webinars, and a colleague of mine just published this in, I think, Search Engine Journal or Search Engine Land. So now the strategy is getting out. It's getting more widespread and known. And basically, the services that you're choosing in your listing can affect ranking in a big way. So you can really boost your visibility for certain keywords. So what we're doing here is you go to your edit services and you want to add more services, and then you'll get a pop-up like this where it says add services, and Google will sometimes pre-populate those services with these little choices. And if you pick these choices, whatever this keyword is in here, you'll get a boost for that if the query matches this a pre-populated service. So you can go in and you can add as many services as you want by manually editing and adding them into there. Those don't necessarily help. They don't pop your rankings, but if you choose the ones that are predetermined for you, if you select those, then that can give you a boost there. And so what you want to do is make sure and each one of the categories that you have on your listing, so primary, secondary categories, each have potentially their own pre-selected one. So you want to go in to your services and just go through all the add more services areas and basically pick all the relevant ones. And if you've listened to me in the past, I say always fill out everything possible. So if you had done this way back in the beginning, where you weren't getting any ranking boost from it, they would have been done. And then when Google's flicked that switch, you would have gotten a ranking, right? So you would have been ahead of your competitors because you already did it ahead of time. Even though it didn't do anything back then, but now it does. So things keep changing. So it's like, people might say, oh, it helps rankings. It doesn't help rankings. It doesn't matter. Fill it out. So every month or every quarter, go back in, because Google's going to add things and change things. And however you're doing your processes, go back in and put it into your process list of, I got to go back and check something, see if anything changed. Always fill out and choose as much as you can.
So Jan, I know this is a service ranking strategy, but Caitlin said she doesn't experience the predetermined service suggestions in her listings. Are they only applicable to certain categories or all services?
Some categories, if you click add more services, it'll be blank. They're not everywhere. And that's why I think Google will eventually add them, but not everyone has them yet.
We did get a few more questions on attributes. So Doug said, oh, attributes as in all the things, amenities, service options, etc. ?
Yeah, I don't have this screenshot of because depending on what your categories are, there's going to be all different kinds of, all different kind of attributes that can be associated with your categories. But if you go, like I mentioned before, if you go to your edit profile and you go down to the bottom, you'll see all kinds of choices. And sometimes it's like women owned, or you're going to have some standard ones. And then there's going to be some category specific ones as well. So and
Hayden said, so it is no longer best practice to completely fill out the attribute section of the GBP in order to get the justifications you want to show up.
Yeah. So again, I'm kind of contradicting myself here. I say fill everything out, but in this specific case, if you fill everything out, there's a priority list of what Google's going to show. So if you don't like what it shows, if you don't like the attributes that it's showing, because you maybe want to prefer a review to show or something, or the service provides a service showing, then that's something that you would have to contact support or make sure you deselect those things. It depends on the business you want, but you won't know what's going to show up. So if this business comes in and removes on-site services and online appointments, you don't know what justification is going to show. Google might show a review justification. It might show a service justification. It might show website mentions justification. You don't know what it's going to do, but it's just the fact that these ones will block the other ones from showing up. That's the main idea here.
You're going to ask the question. I'm not sure that I understand it. You might need to read it with your own eyes. But he says, boost, add, in quotes, services with location, the ranking too?
Boost, add services with location. Yeah, I'm not sure. It's a bit vague.
We might have missed a word in there or something. If you want to re-ask that one, we can get to it.
Okay, so we'll go back into the Q&A end of the session where we just do open Q&A. So those are two really specific things, right? So the justifications and the services. So it's hard to keep track, and that's why we try to give you up-to-date information and strategies and things like that here. But I just want to remind you, this is the regular stuff that you got to do, right? It's fun to nitpick and go in and test and stuff like that, but we want to go through step by step. When you get a new profile, you want to look at all the pieces, and here are my basic checklist steps that we want to look at.
The block and tackle. What percentage, Ian, when people ask really specific questions, like what percentage of the time do you go look at the profiles and people haven't actually done the block and tackle stuff?
Usually they have most of it done, and now they're into the level of, I want to get even the next level higher, right? So you have most of it. The only time where people are there is sometimes they've skipped something, like you don't know to go back to your services and check the predetermined ones, because you don't know to go back, because you've already filled out your services. So why would I go back? I've already done it 3 months ago. Why am I going to poke in there again? I don't have time doing other stuff, right? So it's just a reminder that Google could change any piece. So sometimes, every quarter, every 6 months, something, depending on how your categories and your business and stuff like that, you go in and look at every single piece and see, did anything change? Do I have to update something? It's just something, well, something that I do, because I have to, because I gotta keep up to date. But if you want to stay on top, that's what you got to do, because things change. Even as a product expert, Google will change things and they don't tell us. We find out after, and we're like, Google, you changed this. Oh yeah, what do you think about it? Like, why don't you tell us at a time? They don't right? So that's how it is. So make sure everything is filled out. I mentioned the last core update really affected the primary category, so take a look at that. Make sure that you're doing that the right way. Do your posts, do them, Google says do them every week. DBA will help you do them every week. You don't have to do them every week. It's a lot of work, but if you use the DBA platform, you can set them all up, and it's a lot more efficient. It helps engagement. It helps people click on things, which is, it helps the justification. Sometimes post, the text you have in a Google post pulls up as a justification, and it matches exactly the keyword that someone searched for. And so that's nice to have. So it doesn't necessarily help the ranking there, but it'll help with a justification match, which helps with the click-through rate. The post itself, if people click on it, helps engagement, which helps ranking. So there's reasons to do the post. Doing manually, it's hard to do it every week because you have other things to do, but through our system, you can set them up, sit down for an hour, and boom, knock them out, and now you're scheduled for 6 months, right? So it helps a lot. Same thing with images, schedule them out with DBA platform. You always want to have consistency, right? I don't want to see a listing that has 20 pictures all in once, and then 6 months, 8 months later, they haven't uploaded anything, right? I want to see it consistent every week, every 2 weeks. I want to see a couple new pictures. Google says, okay, they're updating things. I trust the listing more because it's getting updated, it's getting looked at. So now I trust the information is correct. That might help me rank a little bit higher. That way, it also, from a user perspective, if I see a picture from 2 weeks ago as opposed to 8 months ago, is the listing still, active? Are they paying attention? So we want to also give that kind of signal to a user that this is new. I'm keeping up to date. I'm gonna serve you in a good capacity if you use my business, right? Because I'm keeping track of things. So reviews, obviously, it's hard. You don't want to get as many reviews as possible, and that's we could do a whole webinar just on reviews, but that's obviously it's hard to get your clients to get reviews sometimes, but it's super important. There's so many reasons why.
Well, and like you were saying on the last webinar, there's a big difference between 3 reviews and 40 reviews. So that's not insurmountable, to get up in, just get in the double digits if you're in the single digits, and you can get people to give you a review.
Yeah, and you want to take a look at your competitors and see, like, if your competitor has 200 and you have 10, even if as a local SEO person, if I optimize and get you ranking in the 3-pack, they're not going to call you if your competitor has 200 and they're 4.8 and you have 5 and you're and you have only 4 reviews. They're not going to call you first. So there's a certain thing about we can get you there, we can get you on the podium, but no one's going to pick you if they're outshining you on the review. So
well, there's really 2 parts to it, right? One is to get displayed, and that's a Google optimization. But the other is to get picked, because multiple listings are going to get displayed, and ultimately it's a person who makes the choice and clicks. And so you got to cater to both the machine of optimization and the human being who's going to choose.
Right. So there's a balance between what you have to pay attention and focus on from any given time. So and we also want to take a look at stray, especially if you're coming in, if you're an agency, you just picked up a listing or a client. You want to take a look, make sure there's no duplicates or stray profiles around, especially if it's like a dentist and there's practitioner listings, or a lawyer and there's maybe duplicates hanging around, because Google will often create them, or healthcare. It happens a lot in healthcare. They're just like, there'll be doctor profiles everywhere because they've worked at different places, and Google picks up on different data systems and will just create a listing I didn't know I had a listing there. Well, yeah, it was there for 2 years. It just happened. It just was unclaimed, right? It happens all the time. So in certain categories.
So speaking of stray profiles, Bryce actually asked a question. He said, stray profiles that we still have ownership of. For instance, a past account that a client set up for a past location that no longer exists, is it best to just mark as permanently closed or attempt to get rid of the profile and get it removed off of Google?
That's going to be unique to the situation. You know, if it's there and it has some reviews, or if it's bringing in leads, I would say, you know, it depends on what, like, there's a certain thing of following the guidelines, but there's a certain thing of, if it's working, don't fix it, right? If it's not broken, don't fix it type of thing. If you really want to get rid of it, then you can mark it as permanently closed, or you can try to merge it. If it has reviews, good reviews, you want to try to merge it. And there's some steps, and I don't want to go through all the details here. If you contact support, they're not going to help you. You have to slowly, like, kind of change it so that you can merge it over so that the reviews can come in. And that gives you some benefits as well. So if you have extra profiles, don't necessarily think, oh, they're unclaimed, oh, let's just get rid of them. There's some benefit to doing the extra work and kind of merging them into your main profile, because you're going to absorb all that other ranking. Like, it's going to add whatever ranking power it had, it's going to add to the other one. So you don't, and that's where we have to individually look at those kind of things. And I have that experience to know, is it worth it? Is it not worth it? What's the benefit and stuff like that? So sometimes you get lucky. Google created an extra listing for you, and you know, it's bringing in leads, and you just don't touch it. You know, it depends on the situation in that case, right? So let's keep going here. So we also want to look at the landing page. So whatever your landing page is for your listing, usually your home page, but if you have a lot of locations, it might be a location page. Typically, you want to tag those with some UTM parameters so you can keep track, and that helps you know, like, you go into Search Console and your analytics, you can see the difference between someone clicked through on organic or did someone click through on the maps, and you can separate that data. You want to make sure that all those categories that you have on your listing are represented on your landing page, and you also want to make sure that those categories each have their own page, you know, one-to-one matching at least. So there's a lot of things to do that on your website that still affects the maps, right? So because people don't go to your website anymore, it's not as important, I don't want to put as much effort into that. It helps because the rankings of your website boost the rankings and the visibility of your maps listing. So we're still doing a lot of optimization on the website itself, even if 90% of your business is coming through maps. Your maps visibility hinges on your website a lot, not all the time. It depends what categories, but don't ignore it just because we have, there's no click searches anymore. It's still, the website still matters a lot. And so that's there. So I don't want to go through all the details because I'm running out of time for questions. Here's the most important. So your name, keywords in the name still work. So don't just go keyword stuffing, change your actual name, change your actual signage, try to stay within the guidelines so you don't get suspended and lose 2 weeks of being suspended. Your categories, take a look at the other webinar last month about the categories website we just mentioned. Citations still matter a lot. And because the more information Google has about your business, and just like the person asked the question, well, I was able to verify with a phone call. That's because Google had information already about your business and trusted that information. So if Google's crawling the web and sees citations and people mentioning you, and then you go to verify, Google say, oh yeah, I already know that business exists because I've seen it before. So boom, you're good. And so there's certain ways that we know that citations still count. And DBA has the thing, you could go and check our offers about citations and directories, and we try to do that. We try to make it so you don't have to manually do all that stuff. It's very tedious to build citations, but DBA platform will help you do that. In points of engagement, those are the reviews, those are the posts, or the images. We just mentioned that. And the local backlinks, those are harder to get. Those are the hardest things to get. Even though like the DA, the domain authorities of those local, sports clubs and local newspapers and whatever around your town may not be high, they're very, very relevant locally. And so you want to make some effort into some link building or partnerships and you can reciprocal link. If you're a florist and there's a funeral home, you guys can link to each other. You're building business, and Google says, yeah, they trust each other, so I'm going to trust them more too, right? So there's lots of strategies around that. So one last slide before the questions. So there's a lot of changes all the time. And so we're dealing with changes, we're dealing with algorithm updates, we're dealing with Google and Bing and ads and all kinds of stuff. And so what I mentioned to you before is, we have our established process, right? You might have a client and I have my checklist of template. Okay, first I'm going to do this, then this, then this, and this, and this, right? And we have our static list, and we need to do that to be efficient in our work. But then if you're too stuck on that, 6 months later, Google changed something, and now you're missing pieces, or you don't have to do a piece because Google changed something, and a piece that you used to do that was super important isn't important anymore, and you can not do that anymore, right? So we want to have a balance between our processes of our work and when to add new things or when to take out things. And so we have to just think about every once in a while is have your templates, but we have to update those templates. And so, and that's hopefully what this webinar does, and all the local stuff that we do out there with our blogs, and to help you keep fresh. But I don't want to be only look at the new things all the time, because the webinar is about new things, but we always have to keep, this list here. This is the core. We want to make sure, and then there's little details that we might have to change. And then we also, the last thing I want to say is the automated tools versus manually, right? DBA platform, automated tool makes your life more efficient. You can take on more clients, do all that kind of stuff, but you still need to go in once in a while and do a manual SERP review. So take your keyword, just like I was showing you up here, is take your keyword, do a search. What do you see? Is this what I want to see? And I'm not talking about rankings, because rankings are going to change depending on, where you are and things like that. But take a look at the SERP itself. What is Google showing? What are my competitors? Do you have so many more reviews than me? You want to just take a look, because tools, yeah, they can give you scans, but they don't have the brain of what would a person see when they're looking at a search result. So I just want to, again, remind you that, yeah, I get into the little details and the nitpicks, but we also want to step back and take a broader look at what we're trying to accomplish.
Well, and you're saying too, when you see what shows up, you can kind of reverse engineer the profile a little bit and see like what's getting pulled and picked and chosen by the SERP, and then you can kind of adjust that.
Yeah, and it's harder when you're one listing and you're just checking your own thing. If I work, I have hundreds of clients, and I can see patterns, and that's what we're showing off here, is the patterns, things that seem to affect a lot of people. But yeah, definitely every month, every quarter, Google's always changing things, and so you want to take a look and not get complacent with your task, your process list, because you should be updating that every once in a while. So we'll go to questions.
Yeah. So remember, Jürgen asked a question. We weren't sure exactly what it was. So he updated it, I believe, in German. So the question is, bei meiner Frage woher mente ich, ob es einen Unterschied. So I took the liberty of just sticking that into the Google Translate.
Super.
And now I know the question is, in my question before, I meant whether it makes a difference if I write Carpenter or Carpenter Vienna. The same goes for posts and reviews. Does adding the location affect the ranking?
In the service, so right now, I don't have proof that manually entered services affect ranking. And you also want to be aware, and I don't have any silly examples, but you have to be aware that when services get pulled in, or when they're shown in the service area, it'll say provides, right? So if you say provides carpentry in Vienna, that makes sense, or whatever, in German, whatever your language, term it the right way. But sometimes you'll see lawyers, and this has been shared like on Twitter and stuff. It's like a family lawyer, or a lawyer will say, it just says like some kind of brain injury, right? And you don't do brain injury, you're doing brain injury law, right? So it'll say provides brain injury. And we're like, that's silly, right? So you have to be aware that it says provides in front. So you want to write your service out so that it makes sense. If you add in Vienna, the problem is that if you're in a big city, that might make more sense. But maybe someone is just outside of Vienna and they see that and they say provides service in Vienna, you'd be like, well, I'm not in Vienna, I'm outside, so they won't come to me. So you have to be careful. And again, it's going to be different for each person if you add that location. It's not going to hurt in any way, but and that's a test I haven't done. You can see like provides in suburb 1, so provides service in suburb 2, like that's going to go extreme, and that would be a test. And yeah, testing is good. It might work, it may not work. So if you spend 15 minutes filling, 30 different provides XYZ service in XYZ town, I don't know, you might waste your time, but it might work out really well for you. I haven't done that specific test.
So Grace asked the most popular question, which is, does making regular posts to your Google business profile have a direct impact on the local ranking?
Not directly, like I mentioned, but the more people click on your posts, Google measures that, and it's always a comparison, right? It's always a comparison. The one listing has no images, no posts, nothing, and then the other one has images and posts. So right away, Google says, oh, one's updated, one's not updated. And also Google measures, oh, well, people were more interested in this listing because they clicked more. So Google stays in business by giving good information to people. And so this one was more interesting, so we're going to put that higher because people seem more interested in it. And so it's one of those factors. So it's not directly, but the engagement on the listing becomes part of the ranking factor.
Well, would you say that Google just looks at activity, like a profile that has had no updates versus a profile that does have new posts or things going on, makes a ranking difference?
Yeah, it's activity. There's two pieces of that. Yeah, activity and engagement. So they're two separate things. Yeah.
Kayla asked, does Google still care about landing page phone numbers being the same as the ones listed in the Google business profile? How should companies with multiple locations reconcile phone number consistencies on landing pages and the GBP and call tracking?
So in your settings, there's a primary phone number. In the Google listing settings, just to be clear, there's primary phone number, secondary phone number. So you can add more phone numbers. So usually what happens, for example, if I have a tracking number on a website, or on the listing itself, I can put a unique phone number on my listing if I put a tracking number there, but secondary phone number is going to be my main listing. My main listing phone number is going to be where all my citations have that number and things like that. You can add multiple secondary phone numbers. So if you have more than one number, add all those numbers as secondary phone numbers. That way Google says, oh yeah, okay, they've told us that this number is here and there and not there and stuff like that. So just add them as secondary.
So basically Google really didn't used to have a way to deal with that, but today they do. You just have to go and sort of put everything in that directory of phone numbers, and then Google can understand it and not ding you for mismatch information.
Yeah.
Do location pages on a website really work to improve the range of local search results? Isn't this sort of spammy?
No, not if you make if you make the pages unique. And so there's two parts of that question. I'll go to the second part. So if you make the page unique, if basically it's 95% of the same text, and you just swapped out, we do service in XYZ location, blah, blah, blah. And then the next service page is we do service in this ABC location, and blah, blah, blah is the same thing. Or even if it's spun a little bit, it's going to be, it may not hurt you, but it's not going to be helpful. So the first thing is and I've dealt with another client that did this. They were making location pages, and they might have helped, they may not have helped, but they were ugly. When someone landed on that thing, they wouldn't convert because they were just spun garbage pages. So you want to make those location pages unique. Oh, we serve this location. Look, we did a roofing job on this part, and then you have different pictures. And so you want to make them unique so that when someone lands from that area of town or that specific town, and they recognize the street name that you talked about, or the building that you worked on, or something like that. You want to make them unique to the location for the search engine, but also for the users. It's like, oh yeah, I trust them because they did a job that I know that block, or something like that, right? So you want to make them unique in that way. You can spit them out, but you're not going to get the biggest benefit. Now, is it going to help? Is it going to help you expand the visibility? That one's hard to answer because it depends on each category, depends on if you're in a small town or if you're a big city. Like, it's not really, it's not an easily testable thing. I would focus those local landing pages on the organic. So if someone says roofer in XYZ town, well, now you might show up fourth on or in organic, as well as in the 3-pack. So now you have two pieces where two places where someone can click on to that first page of Google, right? So I'm trying to step back. When would you want to create local landing pages? When everything else is done. Your GMB listing is filled out completely. All your main service pages are filled out completely. Then you go to the next, right? There's always priorities. Yes, it works, but it's not going to be the first thing I'm going to do.
Jesse asked, is it good practice to geotag my photos before uploading them to GMB?
No, don't do that. Don't do it. It's a waste of time. Now people say it works, it doesn't work, it doesn't matter. You'll never be able to test that. It's such a small thing. DBA platform, if you upload a picture, it'll do it automatically for you. You're not wasting a second extra, right? But never ever do it manually. You're wasting your time.
Maria asked, how about once you get verified and you automatically get suspended? This kind of goes back to when we were talking about the verification conversation.
That happens in certain categories very often. And it's just that, if you're a locksmith or a garage door or something like that, where there's tons and tons of spams, Google has its normal process, which you went through and got verified. And then it says, oh, well, this is a special category. We want to check them a little bit more. Now you're going into the second phase of verification for that category. It's normal. You have to do it. I mean, you may not like it, but that's what we got to do.
Hal is asking about verification also. So any advice for businesses trying to get unmanned locations verified? The postcard and video verification are struggles for us, even as a legitimate business with 160 plus locations.
Okay, so I'm thinking kiosks or something like that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what's an unmanned location?
Yeah, that's what I'm like. You're not allowed to have a listing if there's no one there, but unless it's a kiosk or something, which you're allowed at that, or an ATM, something like that, which have listings. I would try to do bulk and talk to us at DBA. We do bulk verification all the time. It might be worth your time just to pay a third-party service provider like DBA to do that for you. Bulk verification is usually the easiest way. There's no way you're going to want to be dealing with hundreds of postcards going to nowhere and going to support. You can't. You got to do bulk. Yeah,
and we do that for I can't think of who, but I know there's a bunch of locations, kiosk type things that we do that for. Let's see. Ashish asked, sometimes it really gets hard to verify business phone number. It takes almost 45 to 60 days.
I don't know what country you're in, but sometimes there's some issues. I know in India, there's a phone number issues for a really long time. If there's technical glitches, you have to go to support. And then if support doesn't help you, go to the forum. That's the basic steps that you have to do with any kind of glitch. Where information is not getting changed live, even though you're trying to enter it into the backend. That's not something you want to struggle with and play. Just contact support. Say, hey, I'm trying to update my phone number. It's not working. Here's my phone number. Please update it. And most of the time, they'll do that.
Here's an interesting one from Mike. Plumbers near me does not return the local pack. Do you think this is a bug or potential forecasting in the changes to LSA being more important to them?
I think Google's always testing. I mean, plumbers near me usually does.
Some people
but
are
some
saying
don't.
it's showing up in mobile, like the map is not showing up on desktop
Yeah,
as much.
the last change, so there's been a change a few weeks ago, and I didn't talk about it because I haven't tested and I don't want to like just start guessing, but I've heard that there's less local packs than before. And so I don't have any insights yet on that. If it doesn't show up, that's why organic is important. If there's no 3-pack, then the organic is showing more, or the ads, obviously. But the organic, that's where your local landing page is going to make more sense. So again, look at the search result. If there's no 3-pack, oh, maybe I need to make a local landing page. Again, I said that was lower priority, but in that case, that might be higher priority.
Well, and yet I'm seeing a lot more of the sponsored Google guaranteed
Yeah.
being listed too, for probably for plumbers. That's the case. I don't know. All right, I know we are out of time and we still have a lot of questions left. If you have a question that you want to pose in the private Facebook group, Jan does moderate that group and he can answer questions that are relevant. Also, there will be a recording. Several people asked about that. So the recording will go out automatically to everybody enrolled in the Zoom. But you can also get access to the recording through the private Facebook group. If you're not already enrolled in our Facebook group, if you go there now, Luke dropped a link in the chat and he's standing by to approve you to be in that group if you want to do that right now. And remember, if you have any questions, another great place to go is our office hours, and to, talk to somebody individually about how our platform works, how to do the near me metrics, how Local Falcon can help you to assess and analyze your locations, easily, so that you can take kind of the manual work out of figuring out how you're showing up. Great for agencies. So have an office hour appointment, join us on the Facebook group, check out the new changes to the DBA platform and Local Falcon, and we will see you guys on, I think in June, we're going to have 2 webinars, a repeat of local SEO where more questions will get answered on some of these Google things, and possibly some case study information coming out in June as well. So we look forward to seeing you then. Thanks for joining us today and have a great rest of your week.
Thank you.